Sandy Says Read. Welcome to the channel. Tonight we are going to do a review of the Illuminae Files series. The whole series. I know many BookTube channels have already done a review of the first book in the series, Illuminae. So I will go over this one real quick because I think you can find good reviews of this book everywhere you look on BookTube. Then we will talk a bit about Gemina, and then we're going to go more in depth into Obsidio because I haven't really seen a lot of reviews out here about Obsidio, and maybe I just haven't looked hard enough, but I just haven't seen that many reviews on Obsidio, and I did enjoy Obsidio. This was a good wrap-up of the trilogy. So let's dive in. The first thing we're going to do is get naked. Haha! We're going to undress the books because these jackets on these books, while they're really pretty and I think they're nice, they're a little bit difficult to work around. You know what I'm saying, see? Illuminae is the first one up. The authors of the series are Amie Kaufman and Kristoff. I have to say, they did an awesome job. I was so pleased with the whole series. You have probably already seen on BookTube that this book was written in a very different sort of format. Let me show you. The characters in the novel have to communicate with one another from different areas of spaceships. They're also communicating with an artificial intelligence. They communicate with one another via subspace channels, computer hacking. So the messages that they send back and forth are, as you can see, via computer printouts. We see their messages after the fact. A company called Bitech has essentially gone to an illegal mining operation on Karenza 4 and has attacked the colony there. The colonists, yeah, they're engaged in illegal activity, mining on this planet, but they don't deserve to be basically annihilated. They're being killed by this corporation that has sent a dreadnought there to kill them. And another dreadnought is coming to sort of finish the job. Our two main characters, Katie and Ezra, they're in high school on this colony or on this planet, and they manage to get away, but they get away in separate areas. So neither of them understands or knows that the other is safe. And they've just broken up. So their emotions are kind of mixed on, hey, who made it out, who didn't, do I care if my ex-boyfriend made it out or not? And as the story progresses, Katie and Ezra has always cared whether or not Katie is alive, and Katie comes to realize that she also cares whether or not Ezra is alive. So that underlying, love interest is there throughout the story, but there's always this, clear and present danger in the story. There's always this fear of at any moment something's going to blow up and everybody's going to die. There are twists and turns and moments where someone you thought was on your side suddenly isn't on your side, or someone that you thought was against you, it turns out, oh hey, they were actually on my side and helping me. There are so many of those twists and turns in this book that by the time you get to the end and you go, oh my gosh, that person was good, it's surprising. There are a lot of surprising twists and turns. You got to pay attention while you're reading this book. There is an artificial intelligence. It's abbreviated AIDAN, Aiden, and I read the entire book with Aiden, with his voice in the voice of Hal from Space Odyssey 2000, Hal, that computer voice. I heard Aiden in that computer voice through the whole book. And then a friend of mine here on BookTube, Kevin over at Irish Reader, he said that he read it with the voice of Siri. He heard Siri's voice for the whole thing. And I thought, what a juxtaposition. You know, I just come from, you know, I'm a child of the 80s, and so I just had a totally different take on it. So we've got Katie and Ezra as our main characters in Illuminae, the first book, and they have to get their spaceships that got away from the colony to Hemdall Station. Now in Gemina, we learned that one of the ships from Karenza 4 is on its way to Hemdall Station. Only one of them survived the attack of the dreadnoughts. Only one of the ships made it through all that happened in that first book. Katie is on the ship. She's gonna make it. And the ship is the Hypatia, and it was a medical ship. So this medical ship that, you know, isn't really geared up to do a lot of fighting in space is on its way to Hemdall Station. But at Hemdall Station, there's a lot going on, and basically what's happening at Hemdall Station is what we see in this second book. And we have those, you know, computer transmissions again. We get to see chat rooms and surveillance footage logs. Okay, so someone, and we learn in the third book who the someone is. Someone is giving a report on surveillance footage that is seen via cameras throughout the ships. Then our main characters are in chat rooms chatting with one another over what needs to take place, what needs to happen to protect different characters on Hemdall Station. We still have communications from ship to ship taking place. We still have those hacked computer messages going back and forth, and that's how the story is being told mostly, is in that fashion. Now on Hemdall Station, some bad guys from Bitech have, you know, infiltrated the station, and they are killing people on Hemdall Station because they want to just take over. They want to gain control of the wormhole that's next to Hemdall Station. And our main characters in Gemina are Hannah Donnelly, and her love interest is Nicholas. And Nicholas has a sister named Ella, and Ella is like this computer genius. I mean, she is just amazing. And she actually, what I think is wonderful is that she's protecting a friend's goldfish named Mr. Biggles, and I think that is just the cutest little detail, this cutest little addition that the authors put in there. Just added this extra sense of humanity to Ella that I thought was lovely. I liked that. Anyway, they, Nicholas and Ella have this, well, they're not, oh, I'm sorry, it's not her sister, it's a cousin. Sorry. Nicholas and Ella are cousins. I don't think they're brother and sister. I think they're cousins. Anyway, they have, they obviously love one another. They're family. They love each other, but they have this relationship where they just like needle one another and just argue and fuss and fight. But the arguing and the fussing and the fighting comes through in their computer messages back and forth to each other. I mean, after the fighting starts, they don't really get to interact face to face until the end of the book. And the concept of Gemina, of 2, happens when the wormhole is compromised, and we end up with 2 storylines happening at the end of the book. And once again, those twists and turns happen in Gemina where you don't know who is on whose side, and you see characters dying, and it's startling. I was startled by which characters were dying and how they were dying and the gruesomeness of it. And then you discover, oh, that was one universe, one timeline, which can be corrected. And of course it gets corrected because you can't kill off every single good character. And so I was pleased that the timeline could be corrected. I was pleased with that. All right, so the characters on Hemdall Station, a number of them do get to be saved and do get to jump onto a ship called the Mao, and the Mao does have weapon ability, and it is going back. They've decided they've got to get back to Karenza, and that's going to happen in book 3. Let's go there. The Illuminae Files 3. Now in this, oh, I've got to undress this first. Hang on. Let's undress this book as well. So it's not shining at you guys while we talk about it. All right, in the third book, things are going to wrap up. And wow, this was so well done. I mean, hats off to the authors in this one. There is a trial going on like that. I think we were told that the trial is taking place on Earth. And Leanne Frobisher, who is like the head of Bitech, she is on trial for what Bitech has done, you know, going to Karenza 4, taking out that colony, killing so many civilians there. But she is denying this really happened. There's the Illuminae files have been turned over to the court, and the justices are like, how do you have this stuff? How do we know this is real? Where are you, Katie and Ezra and Hannah? Where are you right now? And how did you get this stuff to us? If Heimdall Station was destroyed and the wormhole is closed, how did you get this stuff to us? Well, in Obsidio, they answer those questions. And we see how these characters basically went from Heimdall Station back to Karenza 4, got onto the planet, and helped eradicate the Bitech forces that were there. But it wasn't just a simple, oh, we're going to go eradicate these forces. That's not exactly what happened. They didn't just eradicate forces. It didn't quite work out that way. And there is Asha Grant, who is Katie's cousin, is on Karenza 4. She didn't make it off the planet when the invasion force came. So she has been working in the pharmacy and the hospital on Karenza 4 this whole time. The love interests in this book, or in the third book, are Asha Grant and then Riss Lindstrom. And they actually had separated. They were apart before the series, like a couple of years before the series begins, before Bitech, invades. And Riss is actually a member of the Bitech invasion force, but he's more of a sciencey guy. He's more of a computer tech guy, but he does have to join the ground force crew because so many of the ground force crew have been taken out by civilians who are, fighting for their lives. So when he is brought down to the ground force crew, he runs into Asha in the hospital, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, it's you." She's like, "Oh my gosh, it's you." And they do have that moment of, "What are you doing here?" And they sort of restore their relationship. But once again, you have that sense of, oh, they're not really going to restore it. Oh, yes, they are. Oh, no, they're not. Oh, yes, they are. It's so that give and take and that strife and turmoil that you've seen throughout the series is still happening in here. So you still have that wonderful tension is happening still in this book. I tell you, there's just so many bits and pieces and so many storylines interweaving in all three of these books. It's just well done. You've got to pay attention when you're reading this series. This whole time, for 7 months, she's been in the hospital there working, and she's been hiding a little girl while she's been there. So we have, Stephen King and George Lucas, those people out there, they know how to put a child in danger in their stories and make you fear for a child. These authors did that so well. They took a note from the masters, and they have this little girl. They just refer to her as, a mouse. She's the cleverest mouse because the cleverest mouse never gets caught, and she hides up in the ceilings, and she gets around by just scooting around and hiding. This little girl is this pathetic character that you root for and you fear for, and we're taught all the reasons that Asha Grant fears for this child and all the backstory and why she just must protect this little girl. What happens to this little girl? It is moving. I don't want to give away too much, just in case you all out there haven't read the third book yet or haven't gotten all the way through the third book. But when we get almost to the end, there is a scene where things happen and my jaw just dropped. And I could not believe. Because this one is not titled Gemina. There's not a second universe in this one. What happens, happens. And I was just startled and stunned. But things happen because they must. You know, it's just, they must. It's like the rule in baseball. Why does he run? Because he must. It was just fabulous, clever, well done. Everything about it was just amazing. Amazing. Well done. This was a great ending to a book. And the characters who do make it, you know, back to Earth and have the trial, and they're speaking in the trial, it's just well done. I highly recommend this whole series. It is one you've got to pay attention to. You've got to pay attention while you're reading. The character of Aiden, the artificial intelligence, he is a difficult character to like in some places, and in other places you're just rooting for him, which is weird because he's a computer. But okay, I did mark something in this third book that I found very deep, very moving. I wanted to point out to you guys. The Bi-Tech bad guys have, you know, invaded, and they are occupying the Karenza 4 colony until they can get, you know, some of the colonists to mine enough thermium to power up their ship and take off. And of course, once they power up their ship and take off, they will have no more use for these colonists, and they're going to kill everybody, okay? And there's no question in anyone's mind that that's what's going to happen. So we have these civilians who are basically prisoners of war. They are basically in a concentration camp, and they are being used for their labor. And the similarities between what's happening here and the Nazi concentration camps during the war are just deep. And let me just read this little passage and tell you what I thought of it. This is surveillance footage summary prepared by analyst ID 7213 0089GN. I can't begin to get inside that headspace where every day brings you closer to your own execution, walking the line between believable production delays and getting shot for dropping your quotas. The whole show was a terrifying balancing act, trying to keep your overlords happy while staving off the day when they finally meet their fuel requirements and every civilian in the colony becomes expendable. And sometimes, to keep that balance, sacrifices had to be made. What it reminded me of was a story out of Nazi Germany where these ladies were asked who in this crowd knows how to make lace. And those who raised their hands were brought into, you know, a room where they were set down with, you know, the materials to make lace. And the others were marched off to wherever. And, you know, now in history we know that was gas chambers. At the time, you know, these ladies were set down to make lace. And they had to fulfill quotas making lace. Well, when they were finished making lace, they would be marched off somewhere. And they knew it. And that's what's been written here. Now, I don't know if Kaufman and Kristoff intended that parallel, but that's exactly what I thought of when I read this passage. And it chilled me when I read it. This book is very deep. I mean, this book is deeper than just chat rooms and clever formatting. This is a deep book. There's a lot going on in here that is very well done. Kudos to Kaufman and Kristoff. This is an excellent trilogy. I highly recommend it. I want to know what you guys thought of the Illuminae Files trilogy. I know that a lot of booktubers out there have been talking about the first book especially. I didn't, like I said earlier, I didn't see as many reviews of Gemina, and I've not seen any reviews of Obsidio. So you guys, let's chat about it in the comment field below. Give me your impressions. Tell me what in these books struck a nerve with you. Give this video a thumbs up, because the Illuminae Files trilogy was awesome and wonderful. Please subscribe to the channel because I do all kinds of fun stuff here. And don't forget to click the bell icon so you'll be notified when I do fun stuff here. Thank you so much.